Stop scrolling, because this could be the kind of coin collecting news that makes you look twice at every old Jefferson nickel in your collection. We are talking about 5 legendary American Monticello 5 cent that continue to attract serious attention from collectors, dealers, and major auction buyers. These coins are not simply old pieces of copper. They represent important chapters in American coinage history, famous minting stories, scarce production, dramatic varieties, and collector demand that has remained remarkably strong. So before you spend, trade, or overlook an old 5 cent, take a close look at the date, mint mark, design details, and overall condition, because sometimes the smallest coin can carry one of the biggest stories in American numismatics. And today we are getting started with 3 of the most exciting 5 cent collectors should know. Let's get started with the first coin today. We are taking a close look at the 1977 Jefferson Nickel with no mint mark, a Philadelphia minted coin that is often overlooked because more than 585 million were produced. While most circulated examples are common, collectors become much more interested when condition, strike quality, and especially full steps on Monticello come into play. The Jefferson Nickel was introduced in 1938 and was designed by Felix Schlag. The obverse features a portrait of Thomas Jefferson, while the reverse shows Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home. In 1977, coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint carried no mint mark, so the absence of a letter below or beside Monticello is completely normal for this issue. The coin is made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, has a diameter of about 21.2 millimeters, weighs 5 grams, and has a plain edge. One of the most important things to examine on a 1977 Jefferson Nickel is the quality of the strike. The design includes Jefferson's portrait on the front and Monticello on the reverse, with the famous inscription, 5 cents, underneath. Collectors also pay close attention to the small steps at the base of Monticello. When those steps are sharply defined and uninterrupted, the coin may qualify for the highly desirable full steps designation. PCGS notes that 1977 nickels were often not very well struck, making strong high-grade examples considerably more difficult. Here is where the story becomes especially interesting. The ordinary 1977 nickel is not considered a rare date because of its large mintage. However, rarity in coin collecting is not always about how many were originally made. It can also be about how many survive with exceptional preservation and a superior strike. PCGS specifically describes high-grade examples as difficult to find, particularly at MS66 and above, while full steps examples are scarce because the Monticello steps were frequently weak or incomplete. This means a circulated fine condition coin should not automatically be described as a rare jackpot coin. Instead, collectors should look for unusual characteristics such as an error, an exceptional strike, or an authenticated variety. The absence of a mint mark itself is not an error. It indicates Philadelphia production for this issue. Current market value in dollars. For a circulated 1977 Jefferson Nickel in fine condition, the realistic market value is generally around its face value rather than a huge auction price. Current coin references list circulated examples at or near face value, while substantially higher prices are associated with uncirculated and exceptional full-step specimens. For perspective, PCGS records an auction result of selling for $550,000 for a regular 1977 nickel-graded MS63, while a remarkable 1977 full steps example reached in an auction record at the selling for level. These figures demonstrate how dramatically grade and strike quality can change collector interest, but they should not be confused with the value of an ordinary fine condition coin. If you have a 1977 nickel with no mint mark, start by carefully examining both sides under good lighting. Look at Jefferson's hair and facial details, the lettering, the rim, and especially the Monticello steps. Avoid cleaning or polishing the coin because improper cleaning can permanently reduce its collector appeal. Also check for unusual die characteristics or genuine mint errors rather than assuming that an ordinary missing mint mark is an error. If you believe your coin has exceptional preservation or an unusual variety, professional authentication and grading can be worthwhile. A certified grade can provide an independent assessment of condition and may make a high-quality example easier to sell through a reputable dealer or auction. Remember that auction records for top-grade coins are not guarantees of what every 1977 nickel will bring. So before you dismiss a 1977 Jefferson nickel simply because it has no mint mark, take a closer look. The no mint mark Philadelphia issue is a normal part of the 1977 series, and the majority of circulated examples are common. The real collector excitement begins when you encounter outstanding preservation, a strong strike, clearly defined Monticello steps, or a legitimate mint error. Those features can transform an ordinary-looking nickel into a much more interesting collectible. So check your old coins carefully, protect anything unusual, and never assume that a small coin has no story to tell. Next up today, we are taking a close look at the 1965 Jefferson Nickel, a 5-cent United States coin that carries no mint mark. At first glance, this nickel may look completely ordinary, but the story behind the missing mint mark makes this date especially interesting to collectors. The important thing to understand is that the absence of a mint mark on a 1965 Jefferson nickel is not automatically an error. During the national coin shortage of the 1960s, the U.S. Mint deliberately removed mint marks from coins, making 1965 nickels with no mint mark a normal issue. The Jefferson nickel was introduced in 1938 and features Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his famous home, Monticello, on the reverse. By 1965, the United States was experiencing a major shortage of circulating coins. To discourage people from hoarding coins based on mint location, mint marks were temporarily removed from U.S. coinage through 1967. As a result, the 1965 Jefferson nickel can appear without a P, D, or S mint mark, even though production involved more than one mint facility. A substantial portion of the 1965 dated nickels was actually produced during 1966, adding another fascinating chapter to this coin's history. The 1965 Jefferson nickel has a total reported production of about 136 million pieces. It was made from the traditional copper-nickel composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel, weighs approximately 5 grams, and has a diameter of about 21.2 millimeters. These specifications make it easy to identify when examining an old nickel collection or a group of circulated coins. One of the most recognizable features is the portrait of Thomas Jefferson facing left on the obverse. The inscriptions include Liberty, the date 1965, and the motto In God We Trust. On the reverse, collectors will see Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home, along with the inscriptions United States of America, EPLUBUSUNUM, 5 cents, and MONTICLLO. The edge is plain rather than reeded, another characteristic that helps identify a Jefferson nickel. There is also an important distinction between an ordinary circulation strike 1965 nickel and a 1965 special mint set coin. The mint produced special mint set pieces in 1965, and these special strikes can have much stronger surfaces and sharper details. PCGS records a special strike mintage of about 2.36 million pieces, with particularly high-grade and cameo or deep cameo examples becoming much more desirable to advanced collectors. For a normal circulated 1965 nickel in fine condition, however, the coin should not automatically be considered an extremely rare or multi-thousand-dollar coin simply because it lacks a mint mark. The missing mint mark is normal for this issue. What can dramatically change collector interest is exceptional preservation, full steps detail on Monticello, a recognized minting error, or a rare high-grade variety. The real excitement surrounding the 1965 Jefferson nickel comes from condition rarity rather than the simple absence of a mint mark. Most surviving examples were circulated heavily, and many show weak strikes, contact marks, scratches, and worn details. According to NGC, weak or incomplete strikes are common among 1960s Jefferson nickels. That means finding a sharply struck example with excellent surfaces can be much more challenging than finding an ordinary circulated specimen. Collectors pay particular attention to the steps at the base of Monticello. Coins showing exceptionally complete full steps can command dramatically higher prices because very few examples survive with that level of detail. Auction records demonstrate just how important condition and strike quality can become. A 1965 Jefferson Nickel graded MS-66 with 5 full steps sold for $3,840 in 2025, showing the enormous difference between an ordinary circulated coin and an exceptional certified condition rarity. Errors can create another level of demand. Recent auction records include unusual 1965 nickels struck on incorrect planchets and other dramatic mint errors, demonstrating why collectors should inspect unusual pieces carefully rather than judging every example only by its date and mint mark. Now comes the most important part for anyone searching through an old coin collection. In 2026, a normal 1965 Jefferson nickel without a mint mark in fine circulated condition is generally a common value coin rather than an automatic jackpot. Current references place ordinary circulated examples around face value, while higher-grade uncirculated coins can bring considerably more. USA Coin Book, for example, lists the regular issue primarily in the range of face value up to higher prices for uncirculated examples, while NGC similarly notes that circulated examples are generally worth only a small premium. However, the exceptional end of the market is a completely different story. For a remarkable 1965 Jefferson nickel with extraordinary full steps preservation, the documented auction record reaches selling for $560,000. This is why collectors should never assume that every 1965 nickel is worth thousands of dollars, but they also should not ignore a coin simply because it has no mint mark. The grade, strike, surfaces, varieties, errors, and certification can completely change the market. If you discover a 1965 Jefferson nickel, begin by examining the date and confirming that the coin is actually from 1965. Do not treat the missing mint mark as an error because no mint mark was intentionally used on U.S. coinage during this period. Next, inspect Jefferson's portrait, the lettering, the rim, and especially the Monticello building on the reverse. Look closely at the steps beneath Monticello because strong full steps detail can be much more important than ordinary surface appearance. Avoid cleaning the coin. Scrubbing, polishing, or using chemicals can permanently damage the original surfaces and may reduce collector interest. If you believe your coin has exceptional preservation, full steps, or a significant mint error, professional authentication and grading from a respected grading service can help establish its true condition and market potential. The 1965 Jefferson nickel without a mint mark is a fascinating piece of American coinage history. Its missing mint mark is completely normal for the period, but its history during the national coin shortage, its production circumstances, its condition-sensitive value, and the scarcity of exceptional full steps examples make it an interesting coin for collectors. Most fine condition examples are not rare treasures worth thousands, but extraordinary examples can bring impressive auction results when their condition and characteristics are properly documented. So before you spend or overlook that old 1965 nickel, take a closer look at Monticello, study the steps, check the surfaces, and look for unusual errors or varieties. You never know when an ordinary-looking 5-cent coin might turn out to be a truly interesting collectible. Next coin today, we are taking a close look at a fascinating piece of American coinage, the 1973 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark, especially an example in fine condition. At first glance, this 5-cent coin may look completely ordinary, but understanding its history, minting details, condition, and collector interest can make it much more interesting. Before assuming that every 1973 nickel without a mint mark is extremely rare, it is important to know exactly what the missing mint mark means and what features can actually make one example more desirable than another. The 1973 Jefferson nickel was produced at the Philadelphia Mint and Philadelphia coins of this period were issued without a mint mark. According to PCGS, the 1973 Philadelphia issue had a mintage of 384,396,000 pieces. That means the absence of a mint mark by itself is not an error or proof of extreme rarity. Instead, it identifies the coin as a Philadelphia issue. The coin belongs to the long-running Jefferson Nickel series designed by Felix Schlag, featuring Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home, on the reverse. One of the most recognizable features of this nickel is the portrait of Thomas Jefferson facing left. Around the portrait are the inscriptions Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date. On the reverse, you can see the magnificent Monticello building, together with United States of America, EPLUBUSUNUM, MONTICLLO, and 5 cents. The coin has a plain edge, measures approximately 21.2 millimeters across, weighs about 5 grams, and is made from a copper-nickel composition containing 75% copper and 25% nickel. For collectors, the most important point is condition. A fine condition example has experienced noticeable circulation, with some wear visible on Jefferson's portrait and the Monticello design, but the major details remain identifiable. Because the 1973 Philadelphia nickel was produced in such a large quantity, an ordinary circulated example is generally not considered a major rarity. Current reference information places circulated pieces around face value, while higher prices are associated mainly with better preserved uncirculated coins and exceptional certified examples. So where does the exciting auction market story come in? The real opportunity is not simply the missing mint mark. It is the possibility of finding an unusually well-preserved coin, a strong strike, full steps detail on Monticello, or a genuine minting error. PCGS records an auction result for a 1973 Philadelphia Jefferson Nickel graded MS66, demonstrating how dramatically value can rise when a common date coin reaches an exceptional certified grade. A separate 1973 full steps example reached $640,000 at auction in MS67 FS. These results are for exceptional high-grade coins, not ordinary fine condition pieces. For a 1973 Jefferson Nickel in fine condition, collectors should therefore keep expectations realistic. The coin is historically interesting and absolutely worth examining, but the ordinary no-mint mark issue is not automatically a high-dollar rarity. The major values seen in auctions belong to coins with exceptional preservation, full steps, or unusual errors. One documented example of a 1973 Jefferson Nickel struck on a 1-cent planchet also appeared in public auction records, showing why unusual mint errors can attract attention beyond the normal value of the date. When examining your own coin, start with the date and confirm that it really is the 1973 issue. Then check the area where a mint mark would normally appear on the obverse. Remember that Philadelphia's 1973 business strike nickels were intentionally produced without a mint mark, so do not mistake the normal absence of a letter for an error. Next, inspect Jefferson's hair, facial details, lettering, and the Monticello building. On the reverse, pay particular attention to the steps beneath Monticello. Strong, uninterrupted steps can become especially important in high-grade collecting. Collectors should also avoid cleaning or polishing the coin. Scratches, harsh cleaning, chemical damage, or artificial shine can significantly reduce collector appeal. Instead, handle the nickel carefully by its edges and store it in a proper holder designed for coins. If you believe your specimen has an unusual error or exceptionally strong preservation, professional authentication and grading may be worthwhile because certification can provide an independent assessment of condition and authenticity. The biggest lesson from the 1973 Jefferson Nickel is that rarity is not determined by age alone. A coin can be more than 50 years old and still be common, while a particular high-grade example or genuine mint error can become much more desirable. The 1973 no-mint mark nickel is a perfect example of why collectors should look beyond the date and examine strike quality, preservation, varieties, errors, and documented auction history. In conclusion, The 1973 Jefferson Nickel with no mint mark is a fascinating Philadelphia issue with an enormous original mintage. So an ordinary fine condition example should not automatically be advertised as an extremely rare or extremely valuable coin. However, exceptional specimens can tell a very different story. The documented auction history for high-grade and full steps examples proves that condition and special characteristics can dramatically change collector demand. So before spending, selling, or dismissing your old nickel, examine every detail carefully. That small 5-cent piece could be an important addition to your collection, and the real treasure may be hiding in the details. Thanks for watching, and keep checking your coins. You never know what interesting piece of American history you might discover next.